As we all eagerly await the Walten Falls Episode 5 in 2025, it is safe to say so many theories and predictions have been made in preparation for what's going to go down in Episode 5. Obviously, there's been some confirmation on what the episode's about, what it's been inspired by. However, there is only one thing that is left to do, and that is eventually wait and find out what's going to go down in the Walten Falls Episode 5, Faces of Grief. Now, in this video, I'll be discussing my predictions and my honest thoughts of what's going to go down in this episode. Piece by piece, we're going to break it down on what I think is going to happen, and hopefully when we go eventually probably to April or May, we find out if I was right or wrong for the Walten Falls Episode 5. If you like this video, make sure to smash like down below. Let me know your predictions before you hear mine. Let me know your predictions right now. As I'm saying this, go into the comments, type a prediction for what you think is going to go down in Episode 5. Without further ado, let's get straight into my prediction. So, we don't actually know how long this episode's going to be. I would predict maybe 30 minutes. I don't think it's going to be as long as Episode 4. However, it's going to be on similar wavelengths. I think Episode 4 is like 37 minutes, 36. So, when I think of this episode, I think we're going to open up with the funeral of Ed and Molly. And that's because we've got so many teasers on whether they're going to be Episode 5 or 6. We don't know just yet. But one teaser in particular is this one. I did a video on it, so go check that out. I did it the other day. However, this, I think, is the funeral of Ed and Molly. I just think the fact that we actually see Jack, we see Sophie for the first time, looking this shocked, I think this is going to open up with the funeral scene in the same animation style that happened with the opening of Episode 4. I think we're going to get some exposition. I hope we actually see the Walten family interact, and I also think we're going to get some sort of interaction between Jack and Rose before Jack goes missing. I think we're going to get the conversation we got in the one teaser that came out a while ago, with of course the shot of Jack and Rose's bed as Jack repeats the lines that we must be strong for Sophie.
Rosemary,
That's Jack, okay.
we have to be strong.
Oh, the sheep is on the bed, oh no. That's foreshadowing. Sophie.
From the filming studio magic of Illinois, Chicago.
I think this is really exciting to predict as well, because we're actually going to see the Walten family interact with each other and actually build their characteristics, which is going to make it so much more heartbreaking when they're torn apart by this episode. Because as we know, this episode is inspired by a specific episode of BoJack Horseman, and you know that show can hit the heartstrings like no other. So I'm sure this episode is going to be deeply tragic, especially for what's going to go down. Because of course, this episode is in the timeline of where Jack disappears. Now, I don't think we're going to get anything to do with his disappearance. I think we're just going to get the whole where's Jack? He isn't here. Where is he gone? However, I think this is going to play a huge factor on the whole Faces of Grief title and tagline. And what I mean by that is simply because I think we're going to get Rosemary's grief. This is what this episode is all going to be about, and it's Rosemary's approach to dealing with not only the loss of her youngest kids, but her husband as well. Will that not only break her down as a person, I think it's also going to affect her relationship with Sophie. I think she's going to completely shut Sophie off, and that is what we're going to get, because there was a conversation before on Find Jack Walten that Sophie said she didn't remember her mum as much as she would Jack. So I think there's going to be some sort of divide here of personality. We're going to get some sort of actual really heartbreaking storylines of possibly Rosemary pushing Sophie away so that her grief wouldn't rub off on her. Obviously, in her mind, it's the right thing to do to kind of not have her child experience their mother in that sort of state. However, it will deeply affect Sophie, and I think we all know that. I think this episode is going to be all based around Rosemary, as it's pretty much confirmed to be, and I think that it's going to be absolutely tragic. And of course, we are going to get the Rosemary kill in this episode, and that is going to be tragic. Now, while I think this is going to play out, I know we're going to have a decent amount of exposition here. I don't think we're going to jump straight to her being lured to Bond's Burgers, but the recent teaser that came out, or video that came out for New Year's, ended off with a slight teaser for episode 5, with Rosemary sitting at a door and a phone ringing as well. Now, personally, I think this is going to be the phone call that was played at the end of the late night television teaser that came out a while ago. I think this correlates to the same scene. So I think not only are we going to get, Rosemary watching a show called Wonderland. Now, I actually think that's a kind of vision. I don't think there's actually a show called Wonderland, but you never know. There might be. That could be leading into who Bond is, but that's a separate conversation. But I think this episode is going to lead on to obviously Rosemary being lured to the burger place, obviously to eventually be killed. But however, I think this is how this scene's going to play out. I think Rosemary's going to be up really late at night for whatever reasoning, probably just in grief, not knowing and not being able to sleep, possibly going into her art room as we saw those teasers before, possibly showing her in the past being all happy, drawing with Jack, you know, making the restaurant's idea, to now being in the restaurant while also just being so depressed and so, you know, full of grief, no pun intended with the whole title. But I genuinely think that this is going to be an exposition and kind of juxtaposition to compare her being happy when Jack was there and Ed and Molly were there, or even before Ed and Molly and Sophie, but now to where she has genuinely nothing, and that's going to be heartbreaking to see. Now, when it comes to this, though, I think this is when the phone rings. I think the phone's going to ring, wake her up, and that's that scene at the end of the Happy New Year's, and basically, I think this is going to lead to Bon luring Rosemary in. And now we get into the Valentine's Day cards, because I think this is going to be tragic, because we know Bon says, "I know where he is, Rosie." And the fact Bon says that has to mean something, and those Valentine's Day cards are, in my opinion, the way Bon gets Rosemary in. Because realistically, some random person saying, "I know where he is, come with me, follow me to the back of the burger place," is very suspicious, right? We would expect them to have a sort of intelligence to not just follow strangers. However, I think the fact that Bon is going to have a Valentine's Day card that Jack and Rose gave each other, possibly the one that Jack gave her on the floor of the burger place, I think this is actually going to lead to Jack having that on him at all times, to obviously whatever happened to him ended up with Bon having the card. Now Rosemary's going to see the card on the floor and go, "Oh my god, Jack is here, he has to be here," to then following Bon to the back room and ultimately getting killed. And that is going to be such a tragic death, and honestly really horrifying. And as Martin did say, by the end of this season you will see Bon do something absolutely crazy. Now, does he mean by episode 5 or does he mean by episode 6? I honestly don't know, but this in episode 5 of the whole luring scene, I think that might be it, because that is so vicious, it's vile, it's really scary in my opinion. And the fact that we're going to see Bon in this sort of like almost Pennywise like kind of luring somebody in, I think this is going to be really menacing. And I just think this episode is not only pulling the heartstrings of everyone, possibly seeing flashbacks to Jack and Rosemary when they were younger. I think this is going to be really, honestly, just heartbreaking. I think it's going to be absolutely heartbreaking. It's going to pull on people's heartstrings. I will probably cry at least 3 times and then probably have nightmares as well. So it's a nice juxtaposition from the Walten crew, of course. However, I think that's what's going to happen in the Walten Falls episode 5, Hastes of Grief. There's so many things that could go wrong, so many things that could go scarily wrong, and ultimately, I genuinely think, story progression-wise, this could be the best episode of the series, because there's so much going for it. The story is so engaging because everyone seems to love Rosemary. Obviously, the Charles story is probably next in episode 6, and that is obviously my most intriguing storyline that I'm intrigued with. However, Rosemary seems to be a real fan favorite when it comes to her and Jack's relationship, and like, oh, it's really cute. And I think the fact that that's going to be shattered in this episode is really going to affect some people's viewing experiences in a good way, to kind of show like, oh my god, this story is tragic but also horrifying, and I cannot wait to see it. But that is my predictions for the Walten Falls Faces of Grief episode 5. I cannot wait. It's so exciting, right? It's so exciting. All the teasers we're getting. We are bound to get some more teasers soon as well. We had about 20 or 30 teasers from the charity stream as well. So thank you for the Walten crew for sending me those and helping everyone see some incredible teasers. We all love them. But we are all just eagerly awaiting for the next episode of the Walten Falls. We cannot wait. For sure, Makeship are actually shipping out the Pumpkin Rabbit and Witch Sheep plushies. I should have mine on the way soon. Hopefully be in the background by the next video. But thank you all so much for watching. If you did enjoy it, make sure to smash the like button down below. Make sure to subscribe as well. We just hit 5k as well. Thank you so much. I love you all. Have the most amazing day. I'll see you in the next video. And of course, stay safe and peace. First shot of this episode. Tammy picks this house.
Oh, what about that one?
Now, if you ask me, that is the, worst house you can pick. It has wallpaper on the outside.